Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast, where we talk about everything dog. Q&As with veterinarian professionals, rescue operators, everyday topics. We cover everything dog on this podcast. So make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media on both Instagram and Facebook. Thanks again for listening. Now here's that next episode. Hey everyone, welcome to the Canine Culture Podcast. This is your host, Brittany, and we're going to talk a little bit about dog rescues and the behind the scenes that a lot of people don't see. So we've had episodes before on, what to expect when you're rescuing a dog, what to look for, that 333 rule, and some of that other information. But I don't think we've touched a lot on the behind the scenes and what a lot of people don't see with dog rescue. So whenever you are reaching out to a rescue or you're submitting an application, you might not get an answer right away. And you see it often, people on Facebook or, Reddit, one of those threads, basically talking about a rescue. I can't believe they didn't get back to me. They took forever. They made me jump through hoops. And I can tell you that this is not malicious. They're not ignoring you. They don't want to make this any more difficult than it has to be. They really do want to get these dogs adopted. So let's kind of think about the people who are at these rescues. So I'm going to say 98 to 99% of the time, they're not being paid. They're volunteers. And even with volunteers, that rescue might only have one or two volunteers, or they might just have people as they're available. And those people work in different capacities. And so if you're not getting paid, you probably still have a full-time job. You might even still be working two jobs, like many people in dog and animal rescue are. And so you've got someone already working. They're doing this on the side because they are passionate about animals. They really do want to find dogs good homes. They want to keep them out of the shelters, prevent them from being euthanized. And so you've got these volunteers, and they're working in different capacities. So maybe you see a rescue with 10 volunteers, but maybe 9 of them just walk the dogs or do something as it relates to the labor and not so much with respect to the administrative work. So that's kind of one thing to think about is when you're reaching out to the rescue, remember that these people are volunteers. The second thing that kind of goes along with this is rescue operators, rescue volunteers are busy from actually getting the dog. So you don't know if they got the dog maybe from a shelter, if they got it from an owner surrender, maybe it was a stray and they had a stray hold and that time was up. But there's time that goes into all of that. And so a lot of people don't get to see maybe the transport that's happening. There's a lot of rescues now, especially along the East Coast. They're coming down to like Florida and Texas, especially Texas right now, where we have some high kill shelters. And so that transport alone, coordinating that, whether it be across the country or just an hour away, that does take a lot of labor. So that's something else to consider. The next thing to think about is if these people are running and operating rescues, they are, of course, taking care of the dogs. So feeding them, watering them, making sure that they get potty breaks. If they need to go to the vet, they're taking them to the vet. So think about all of the time that it might take you with your dog in a day, and then multiply that by however many dogs that they have. And then to add on to all of that, these rescues are being inundated between applications, social media, keeping up, trying to post the dogs, respond to comments, and then also just being called for those owner surrenders or those shelters that reach out and say, hey, we don't have space. We need you guys to take a dog. So if you think about all of that background work, I think that will invite you to share a little bit of compassion with the people that you're reaching out with or reaching out to. And another thing that you see a lot of gripe about in the rescue community are rescue fees. A rescue fee could be anywhere from, let's say, $50 on the low end to $400 or $500. And that's usually the top range. But you got to think that that money is covering any and all vet bills that dog had. So if they had to get spayed and neutered, if they had to get a microchip. You often see other medical cases, they needed masses removed. They needed a dental and they needed extractions, different teeth pulled. Maybe they needed an amputation. You see that quite frequently as well. So that's part of what goes into that fee that you're paying the rescue. And then think about just keeping a roof over these dogs' heads. So making sure you're taking care of them in a clean environment that is climate controlled, and you're feeding them and you're giving them, anything else they might need. Flea and tick prevention, heartworm prevention, any kind of medication that they're on. So you are kind of helping that rescue cover some of those bills. Now, sometimes a dog might have less bills, but then that fee that you're paying is going to make up for those other dogs that have substantial bills. Maybe they have a substantial medical background or something to that extent. Or if you have those long-term dogs or those long-timers, they've been at the rescue for some time. The rescue has spent a lot of money keeping them there. And so that's what your money is really going toward. Now, I will say I've seen a few rescues recently who their fees are a little high. And I'm going to say upwards of $1,000 or more. That's where you might start to bat an eye. You might start to kind of figure out, okay, where did they get these dogs? And where's that allocation of funds going? And this is very rare, what I'm about to say, but I am going to just go ahead and say it. There is a particular rescue that I came across, and I won't name the name, I won't say the state, but they get every single dog from a breeder and they give a kickback to that breeder. So essentially, the breeder has the dogs. If the dogs are not adopted, they go to the rescue, and I put that in air quotes for anyone just listening. And then the quote unquote rescue adopts out the dog for $1,000 or $1,500, and the breeder gets a part of that. And so that's something else to maybe think about. It's rare. It's very rare. You probably know so many rescues that are pulling from shelters, taking in owner surrenders, but I'm just saying it to make everyone aware because I had not yet run across that until recently in the past few months. So just like with anything, whether you're buying from a breeder or you're rescuing from a rescue, something to think about, something to look into. Hey, where do you guys get your dogs? And then getting information on how the dogs are vetted. What exactly did they have done with respect to the vet work? Are you able to get a copy of that? But ultimately, I invite you to just be patient, to show compassion, and to remember that these volunteers are doing their best and they're really trying to get these dogs forever homes, which again, plays into some of the strictness of it all. They're so strict with maybe fence requirements, or you have to own your place. They don't want you in an apartment. And much of that's because they don't want to see the dog come back. They want to make sure that it's going to work. So they don't want someone to take the dog and then the landlord of the apartment kick them out or tell them they have to get rid of the dog within a week or two, because that puts the rescue right back at square one. Similarly, sometimes when you see that fence requirement, oftentimes they just know that they don't want that dog to get loose and then again, be right back from square one. So this is another place where you can have compassion for some of these rescues and some of the rules. And ordinarily you can speak to a rescue. Hey, what are your parameters? What do you look for in an adopter? And they'll normally tell you what they need or what they're going to look for. And if it doesn't quite fit you or your lifestyle or what you're willing to do, there are thousands and thousands of rescues. And right now, they're all completely full. So definitely just some things to think about whenever you're rescuing a dog. And, I encourage everyone to, of course, go out and rescue, because right now we are at the height of this animal welfare crisis. Rescues are full. Shelters are full. Dogs are being dumped at an alarming rate. And there's so much more I can say about that, but I'll just invite you to research rescues and get in contact with them if you're interested in one of their dogs, and then just be patient, waiting to hear back from them. And if you don't get selected for whatever reason, again, be patient. I promise you another dog will come up. So thank you guys for listening. Please make sure you subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, and talk to you next week. Thank you for tuning in to the Canine Culture Podcast. Please make sure you subscribe to the Canine Culture Podcast on your favorite podcast platform, and make sure you're following us on social media. If you have any recommendations, any topics that you'd like to hear, if you know of any guests that would be good for the show, or if you yourself want to be a guest, please reach out to us. Send us an email at canineculturepodcast@gmail.com or send us a direct message on social media. Thank you for listening, and please share this with any of your dog-loving friends.